Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, America's Diverse Family Farms 2019 edition.
Enjoy the holidays and just be ready to hit the ground running come next year. Thank you so much.
My name is Kelly Burdett, and I will be your host. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the ERS website next week. At any time during the webinar, you may enter a question into the chat feature on your screen, and our speaker will answer at the end of the presentation. Our speaker today is Christine Whitt. Christine is an agricultural economist in the Farm Economy branch of the Resource and Rural Economics Division of USDA's Economic Research Service. Her research examines how U.S. agricultural policy and the farm economy affect U.S. farm business finances and production, and the well-being of their associated households. Christine earned her master's in applied economics and management from Cornell University. I think we're ready to start, so Christine, you can now begin your presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine Whitt, and as Kelly said, I am an agricultural economist in the Farm Economy branch for the Economic Research Service. Today I would like to present a webinar on a report released earlier today titled America's Diverse Family Farm 2019 edition. And this report is now available on our website. So to get started, I want to give a brief overview of the report. So this report describes characteristics of the 2 million U.S. farms, what they produce, farm profitability, receipts of government payments, and participation in agricultural federal programs. Information about the different farm types or different types of farms is important in understanding the farm sector and farms. The data for this report comes from the 2018 Agricultural Resource Management Survey, or ARMS. ARMS is a unique annual survey conducted by the Economic Research Service and the National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS. ARMS is the USDA's primary source of information on farm businesses and associated households of the principal operator. Principal operators are the operators who are most responsible for running the farm. The 2018 ARMS covers the farm activities during the 2018 calendar year. The survey was conducted in early 2019 and is the latest available data. So before we get into the report, I want to go over some definitions of what a farm is and what a family farm is. So the USDA defines a farm as any place that's sold or normally would have sold at least $1,000 worth of farm products in a given year. And this is a fairly comprehensive definition. It means many small farms are counted in our farm count, even though many have limited sales. This means that the farm sector consists of a wide variety of farms, many small farms with little sales, mid-sized farms with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sales, and large farms with $1 million in sales. And then a family farm is any farm where the majority, or more than 50% of the business is owned and operated by an operator and individuals related to the operator. So now I'm going to talk about how exactly we classify these farms. So the diversity of farms leads us to the ERS farm typology. This helps us classify farms into more homogeneous groups based on similar characteristics. First, we determine whether a farm is a family farm or a non-family farm. Then we break out family farms into based on farm size, measured by gross revenue. And gross revenue is a measure of income received by the farm. This measure is a gross measure, so expenses are netted out. And then for our classification of small farms, we break it out further depending on the principal operator, what they declare as their major occupation. So now we'll go over our exact ERS farm typology. So we start off with small farms, and these are farms that report annual gross revenue less than $350,000. As I said before, small farms are then split into two different groups based on how they declare, or what they declare as their major occupation. So for farms that declare farming is not their major occupation, we have two groups. We have retirement farmers, or where principal operators report that they are retired, although they continue to farm on a small scale. We have off-farm occupation farmers, where the principal operators report a major occupation other than farming. And then our other group, where farming is the main occupation, this is, as I said, where principal operators report farming as the major occupation. We have low sales farms with an annual gross revenue of less than $150,000, and moderate sales farms with annual gross revenue between $150,000 and less than $350,000. And to continue that typology, we have mid-sized family farms, and they have an annual gross revenue between $350,000 and less than $1 million. And then we have our large-scale family farms, which includes large family farms with annual gross revenue between $1 million and less than $5 million. And then very large farms, which have an annual gross revenue of $5 million or more. And then we have non-family farms, and these are farms where the operator or persons related to the operator do not own a majority of the business. Non-family farms are not just large farms operated by publicly held corporations. A common example of a non-family farm is a farm operated by unrelated business partners. Another example is a farm operated by a hired manager on behalf of a landowner. In 2018, 15% of non-family farms had gross cash farm income of $1 million or more. So the majority of non-family farms are either small or mid-sized farms. With these definitions in mind, we will now look at the findings of the report. We'll start by looking at the distribution of farm count, land operated, and value of production using the farm typology. So the majority of farms are small family farms, but large-scale farms have the largest share of the value of production. Small farms represent 90% of all farms, 48% of the acres operated, but only 21% of production. Whereas large-scale family farms represent 2.7% of farms, but account for the largest share of production at 45.9% of production on only 19.5% of total acres operated. Family farms as a whole represent 98% of all farms and 88% of production. Now we will look at the distribution of the value of production by farm typology and commodities produced. So just as a reminder, the group of small farms has annual gross revenue less than $350,000, and this is compressing the retirement, off-farm occupation, low sales, and moderate sales classes. And mid-sized farms have annual gross revenue of $350,000 to less than $1 million. And large-scale farms have annual gross revenue of $1 million or more, compressing large and very large family farms. So here we see that small farms produce 56% of poultry production, including eggs, and 50% of hay production. Mid-sized and large family farms account for the majority of cotton, cash grains, or oilseed production, and large-scale family farms also produce the majority of dairy. Non-family farms and large-scale farms produce the bulk of high-value crops and beef. The large-scale and non-family beef operations are most likely the large feedlot operations. Now we're going to look at the operating profit margin by typology. So the operating profit margin, or OPM, measures the ratio of operating profit to gross income. Operating profit is net income plus interest minus an adjustment for unpaid labor. It is used to measure the resources available to fund a farm's business capital. Farmers with a low OPM may be at a higher risk of financial stress. This figure breaks OPM into 3 risk categories. First, we have the red zone, which is high risk, and these are farms with OPM less than 10%. And then we have the yellow zone, or medium risk, with OPM between 10 and 25%. And then the green zone, or low risk, and these farms have OPM greater than 25%. What's noticeable about small farms is small farms have a greater share of farms in the OPM red zone. However, small farms typically rely on off-farm income so that many so that many are in the red zone for the operating profit margin does not necessarily mean that the farm is in financial stress. Off-farm income is captured or is not captured in the OPM calculation. Remember that many small farms are classified as retirement or off-farm occupation, so the farm business being profitable is not essential to the continued survival of the farm. Generally, the share of farms that are in the green zone increases with farm size. Mid-sized, large, and very large family farms have between 37 and 42% of farms in the green zone. It is also important to note that there is a wide range of farm performance within each zone. So now we're going to shift gears and focus on the farm household. So farm household income is composed of farm and off-farm income. The farm income measure is a net measure, so it can be negative because we're netting out expenses. So off-farm income mostly comes from self-employment or wage or salary jobs. Other types of farm income includes transfer income such as Social Security, investments, pension, 401k plans, and income from capital gains. So with that in mind, let's look at median household income by farm type. So the median income is the level at which 50% of households have greater income and 50% of households have less than the median income. So this is a distribution of the median household income by farm typology. And in general, farm households do not have low income. Retirement family farms and low sales farms are the only two typology classes with median farm income below the median of all U.S. households and median U.S. households with self-employed income. We compare farm households with self-employed income because farm households are most similar to other U.S. households that own a business. Also notice that there is a distinct trend that median household income increases with farm size as farm size increases. Something that is not included in this slide but is important to mention is that farm households are also not generally low wealth either. Wealth is defined as the net worth of a farm household and is the sum of all farm and non-farm assets minus farm and non-farm debt. Only 3% of all family farms had wealth below the U.S. median household in 2018. This is largely due to the amount of farmland farms typically own. So now that we've talked about farm income, let's talk about this important aspect of off-farm income and see what percent of principal operators and spouses are working off the farm. So many family farm households combine farm and off-farm income to generate income and receive other benefits from an off-farm job. Over 41% of U.S. family farms fall into this, quote, off-farm occupation typology class. And just a reminder, those are principal operators who declare an occupation that is not farming. Over 80% of those operators who work off the farm, or over 80% of those operators from the off-farm typology class work off the farm, as do 60% of their spouses. Principal operators of large-scale family farms are less likely to work off the farm than are operators of small and mid-sized family farms. Only 11% of principal operators of large farms and 3% of those at very large farms also hold off-farm jobs. So as I mentioned, farmers also have multiple reasons for taking an off-farm job. So now we're going to look at one of those reasons, which is healthcare. So here we see that where the spouses of the principal operator held an off-farm job, a majority reported that healthcare benefits was one of the reasons for working off of the farm, while principal operators, particularly of large-scale farms and farming occupation small farms, were less likely to cite healthcare benefits as a reason for working off the farm. So now that we've looked at income and we've looked at who's working off the farm, let's now look at where these farmers are working. But before we get into that, I want to go over our ERS collapsed farm typology. So on the next slide, we are using the collapsed farm typology that compresses our large typology we've been using into 3 subclasses. So first we have our commercial farms, and this includes mid-sized family farms, large-scale farms, and non-family farms. And then we have intermediate farms, and this includes small family farms whose operators cite farming as a principal occupation. And this again includes low and moderate sales family farms. And then lastly, we have our rural residence farms, and this includes retired and off-farm occupation farms. So now we can look at where exactly we see these principal operators working. So the occupations of farm operators who work off the farm differ from those of the general U.S. workforce. Among operators of commercial and intermediate farms who also hold an off-farm job, 15 to 18% are working in farming, fishery, excuse me, or forestry occupations, compared to about 1% of the U.S. workforce. In general, farm operators are more likely to work in goods-producing occupations and are less likely to work in service occupations. These occupational choices may reflect location, with good-producing activities more likely to be in rural areas. So now we're going to change gears and look at the legal organization of family farms. And this determines how farm income is taxed. So we see that 90% are organized as a sole proprietorship owned by a single individual or family, and they account for 61% of production. Relatively few farms are organized as C corporations, and these are regular corporations. Only 1% of them, or only 1% are organized as these C corporations, and they account for 10% of production. C corporations are taxed as a farm entity, and shareholders are not individually taxed. It's important to note that corporations do not mean non-family. There are many family farms organized as C corporations. 98% of family farms are organized as a, quote, pass-through entity, and they account for 88.5% of production. This includes all farms except C Corps and others. A pass-through entity means many profits or losses is passed to the owner, partner, or shareholder, and tax is paid at the individual level on their personal tax returns. So now we're going to look at the distribution of government payments by farm typology. So here we see this distribution, and we're focusing on Conservation Reserve Program payments, or CRP payments, working land conservation payments, and commodity-related payments. And thus, each colored bar should sum up to 100%. So most payments from commodity-related and working land conservation programs go to these three groups: moderate sales, mid-size, and large farms. This representing 76% working land and 72% commodity-related payments. Commodity-related payments are targeted at production-specific commodities. Payments are based on historical production. Working land conservation programs are aimed at conserving land currently in production. Very large family farms and non-family farms received very small amounts of commodity-related payments because the commodities they produce, which are typically fruit or vegetable and livestock, are not covered by these programs. CRP is targeted at conservation by taking environmentally sensitive land out of production. The bulk of these payments are going to retirement, off-farm occupation, and low-sales farms. These three groups represent 76% of total CRP payments in 2018. It's important to note that many farms receive no payments. 72% of farms received no farm-related government payment in 2018. So lastly, we are going to look at the distribution of crop insurance indemnities, acres harvested, and participation across farm typology. So this graph is similar to the previous one, that the same colored bars should add up to 100%. So federal crop insurance insures farmers from yield or revenue losses due to events such as bad weather. Indemnities in the green bar are payments from crop insurance to compensate farmers for losses. These are roughly proportional to acres of harvested cropland. These payments are separate from the government payments shown in the previous figure. What is striking is 67% of indemnities are received by mid-sized and large family farms in 2018. This reflects the high participation rates of these farms. 2/3 of mid-sized and 3/4 of large farms participate in these federal crop insurance programs, as well as the types of commodities produced. So for example, a lot of these farms programs cover cash grains and oilseed farms, and this represents 65% of farms in the federal crop insurance program. Participation in federal crop insurance programs have increased substantially over the last few decades. In 1989, the program covered about 1 million acres, and in 2018, about 300 million acres were covered. So to wrap up, we see that 98% of U.S. farms are family farms, and they account for 88% of farm production. Although small farms make up 90% of the farm count, large farms have the largest share of the value of production at 46%, and small farms still count for over half of the value of poultry and hay production. Some small farms in each type operate in the low risk zone, as do more than 37% of mid-sized, large, and very large farms. To continue, in 2018, about 43% of farm households had income below that of the median for all U.S. households, and 3% had wealth less than the median, the U.S. median. Farm spouses who work off the farm cite healthcare benefits as one of the important reasons for working off the farm. And lastly, CRP payments mostly go to retirement, off-farm occupation, and low sales farms, while commodity-related and working land payments go to family farms with annual gross revenue of $150,000 or more. Also, most U.S. family farms, however, do not receive government payments and are not directly affected by them. So thank you for listening. As I mentioned before, the America's Diverse Family Farm Report 2019 edition is now available on our website. And if you have any interest or continued interest in the farm structure or an organization, you can go to our ERS topic page. And that concludes this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We do have a few questions, and I'd like to ask those now, if I could. Here's the first question. Which typology of farms have been seeing the largest increase in the number of bankruptcies filed?
That's a very good question. We actually do not have data on farm bankruptcy by typology, but that is definitely something interesting to look into.
All right, here's another question. Farm numbers are relatively steady. What changes have been seen in farm typology since the commodity boom collapsed in 2013 or 2014? Fewer moderate-sized farms, growth in large-scale farms?
I'm pretty sure that we've seen, as over for a number of years now, with most farm or commodity types, there's been a consolidation of small farms into larger farms. I mean, that's just a very typical observation that we've had for the past probably 20 years or more now, and that's just a continuation of what we've been seeing with these lower commodity prices. But yeah, that's still an overarching observation that we've seen of this consolidation within commodity types.
Good. Here's another question. Which farms had a median income below both the median income for all U.S. household and median income for U.S. households with self-employed income?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of that question.
Yeah. Which farms had a median income below both the median income for all U.S. household and median income for U.S. households with self-employed income?
Oh, okay, yes. So we see that sorry, let me get to the slide real quickly. We see that retirement and low sales family farms are the two typology classes that have median farm income below both the median income for all U.S. households and the median income for self-employed households.
Here's a question. Is there a means by which researchers can access and use the data set for research questions?
Yes, so we have a great data tool called for the data that was used for this. So just a reminder, the data that we use is the 2018 Agricultural Resource Management Survey, or ARMS, and we have a great functioning ARMS web tool that you can go on and find almost all of this data, and it's an extremely interactive web tool. And we also have videos posted on the site talking about how to use the web tool, and we even have an API that allows researchers to download the data onto their own program, and they can then put that data into whatever statistical package they feel most comfortable using. And we have videos that show users how to go about using this API in 3 different ways in Excel, Postman, and R. So I highly recommend if anyone has a research question and wants to use the data to go check out the ARMS web tool.
Great. And what types of farms are most likely to have an off-farm job?
So we found that off-farm occupation farmers are the most likely. 83% of those operators have an off-farm job.
All right, and I have one last question for you, Christine. What % of all farms cited health care benefits as a reason for having an off-farm job?
Sure. So we found that 63% of all principal operators and 66% of all spouses for all family farms cited healthcare benefits as a reason for as one reason for having an off-farm job.
All right. Well, that's all the questions that we have. So this concludes our webinar. Thank you all, everybody, for joining us, and have a great day.